Welcome back to OSI Sunday. We're joined now by a very special guest.
That's right. Earlier this week, the Scripps Company and the Omaha World Herald announced a partnership that includes that man down there, Michael Severe, returning to the AM radio dial. His show, The Bottom Line, will now air on AM 590 ESPN Omaha from noon to 2 p.m. every weekday starting Wednesday. Michael, you have some extremely creative segments in your show. What have you liked the most about The Bottom Line over the last couple of years?
I love the fact that we have the Omaha World Herald writers, columnists on the show. Get a chance to talk to them. We do food, fun, and football. I mean, that's the main things we do. You know, Creighton and UNO as well, but a lot of that stuff, and we always get to have those guys on from the Omaha World Herald. And they're always great. You know, they've been covering, many of them, the Huskers 20, some 30 years, so they're great to have their insight in on the show.
And Michael, you were there last night at Memorial Stadium. What did you think of the tribute to Sam Foltz and all those moments happening inside Memorial Stadium? I
can only think of the days after 9/11, the first games you went to after 9/11. It was so emotional in the stadium. Other than that, I can't think of anything like that. And I have two kids. I've met his parents a couple times now. I was at a fundraiser last week with them. And when they took the nephew and lifted him up to touch, walking through the tunnel walk, I got emotional. I think everybody did. It was amazing inside the stadium. And again, I've never felt something like that at a football game, you know, where you're thinking about the game and fun. And the whole first probably half an hour, I think many of us were thinking about Sam and his family. It was tough.
Now, before the game, the media kind of knew that may have been coming with that, but it still struck, it still pulled on the heartstrings, right?
Well, as Drew said, when the Fresno fans, when the team started clapping and they were trying to get everybody excited, that got you emotional too, because those guys understood. We knew it was coming, but you still didn't know what it was going to be like. And you look down and you see Tommy crying, you see Drew on his knees with his hands up. He was, he's not just a brother to those guys. These guys, they spend every moment together, whether it's classes or, eating, or practicing for football, going to meetings. They're together all the time.
Now, Michael, about the game itself, head coach Mike Crowley wasn't exactly thrilled about the 33-point win. Kind of interesting. Now, why do you think his biggest source of frustration was?
Well, I think every coach is the same thing, right? Turnovers and special teams decide games. And they didn't have turnovers, but special teams played poorly. The punt return team couldn't figure out what was going on. At least one time the ball hit Westerkamp, probably twice. Having the punt block where Jalen Barnett didn't close the door. I mean, those little things right there has got to drive him crazy, because that's how you win games, special teams and turnovers. And I think also they were so sloppy in the first half, and they're much better in the second half. I think he still was holding on to that. But I've never seen him in the year he's been here that emotional after a win. He looked like they'd almost lost. So that was good. I think that's the way he should be. He should be upset when they don't play perfect. They should be working to play perfect all the time.
Now, the game plan from last night, similar to the bowl win over UCLA, pounding the ball. Do you think that was more just to keep the playbook vanilla for later in the season, or do you think Mike Riley is really embracing the ground game?
I think it's a combination. I definitely think that you have a vanilla in the opening game, because physically you could beat up a team like Fresno. Next week you could physically beat up Wyoming. In fact, Oregon's so small on their defensive line. I think you can do a lot of the same things to them. But I think they were vanilla because they're looking down the road. They don't put too much on tape. Although they did have the fake with Darlington. Late in the game when you're up that much, I don't know why you put that on tape. But anyway, there's a lot of things that they did they'll be able to do later. But I'm sure they were vanilla for the purpose of not giving too much away.
So 51 rushes in the game for Nebraska, and we only saw Armstrong throw the ball 10 times, just 5 completions. How would you evaluate Armstrong's performance overall?
Well, watching the game back again today, he made 3 or 4 really good passes. He threw an out to Alonzo Moore. Even the deep route he threw, the 9 route he threw to Moore where it got knocked away, that was still a good throw. They still struggled running the screen. They still have struggled with that. They have times where it's a crossing route and he's got to lead a guy. He still doesn't lead a guy perfectly. But I thought he played pretty well. His running, that's the most important thing. If he runs like that every game, say he gets 8 to 12 rushes, they're going to beat most teams they play. The only team that has more talent than them, honestly, is really Ohio State. Nobody else is more talented than they are.
Yeah, if Tommy can get the ground game going along with the arm. And a big thing last night, no turnovers from the senior quarterback. Big Red Nation happy about that. Finally, can't leave out the defense. The Blackshirts shutting out Fresno State in the second half. Two-part question for you. What did you think was the biggest positive on defense, and then the biggest area for concern?
Well, Kyron Williams, the Shreveport, Louisiana native, honestly, he played really well. But if you go back and you watch the game, Mick Stoltenberg was a man inside. He dominated anybody they put over him. He was a big part of the game. I thought Kevin Reese played really well. If there's anything negative, early on, giving up some throws, letting them convert some third downs early on. Other than that, I thought they played a really good game. The secondary played well. The linebackers are probably the strength of this defense right now. The defensive line played well overall. I thought the defense played very well.
Now, speaking of the lines, on the opposite side, the offensive line, how would you evaluate their night?
I'm very excited about the offensive line. I think even though they lost 3 guys from last year and everybody's in a different spot, Utter at center and moving guys over to the side and Nick Yates, outside of right guard, where I think they had some struggles last night with Tanner Farmer, other than that, I thought the offensive line played better than they played at all last year. I'm really excited about that left side of the line. I think Nebraska's going to make a lot of yards running that way. So I thought the offensive line played great. If they can play like that and get better as they go along, again, the Ohio State team is the only one that I would say that has so much talent on the defensive line they could struggle with them, but I think that they're going to play very well on the offensive line.
And now, other than D. Wade, there were some star-studded recruits in the game yesterday. From NU commits Keyshawn Johnson Jr. to Tristan Gebbia, both from my hometown of Calabasas. Another shout-out.
Yeah.
Go Pack, go Coyotes. What did you think? Who were the biggest stars in town for Nebraska on Saturday?
Well, first of all, Tristan Gebbia is going to be on the show tomorrow. We're going to have him on the bottom line tomorrow. But I think overall, anytime you can get a big-time offensive lineman in and bringing in the #1 offensive lineman in the country, bringing in a 5-star, that's a big part of it. The skill guys, they looked at an offense that wasn't very skillful yesterday, so hopefully that didn't bother them. But I thought overall that getting 2 5-stars in is a huge thing for this team. It hasn't happened since 2001, I believe, the last time they had 2 of them in there. But I thought they showed enough to these guys that they'll have a chance to get most of them. But the Calabasas guys, I think, just they lead the rest of California. So whether it's the guy from Cathedral or if it's the other 2 guys that are out of LA, I think that they're going to have a chance to get most of those guys. So.
Now, Sam McEwen from the World Herald has kind of emphasized this lately, the fact how important it is to get these recruits' parents on campus. Nebraska can now pay for that. In your opinion, how big is that the parents get to see it and experience it?
It's huge. If you can get them on campus and you can get them to go to Dennis LeBlanc's office for academics, if you can get them to go in and show them where they're going to be living, where they're going to be going to the library, where they're going to be doing, the parents love that kind of stuff. And Nebraska's always said if we can get them, Tom Osborne said it just last week, if we could get those people on campus, get them to see everything, we're going to win the majority of the time. And I think if you look at what that new rule is, the only thing left for Nebraska now is having juniors be able to pay for them to visit. Once that happens, I think Nebraska will kind of get even with some of those teams that are so close to town, like Ohio is or some of the teams in the South.
How realistic do you think that is, that juniors,
it's going to happen.
You think so?
I think it's definitely going to happen, yeah. I mean, the Big Ten has got a lot of sway. I think Delaney will be able to help push it in. I think eventually in the next couple of years, we'll have juniors being able to pay for them, at least by the end of their junior year. So that summer, they should be able to come up and you should be able to pay for them. It shouldn't have to wait all the way till the season starts. You have to wait all the way to the end of August or September. It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Michael Severe from the Bottom Line. You can hear him starting on Wednesday at noon on AM 590. Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.